The room was quiet, but not peaceful. Outside, iron struck wood. Roman soldiers forced their way through the streets of Syracuse. Smoke drifted through the air. Inside, an old man knelt on the ground, drawing circles in the dust. He did not look up. He did not run. A soldier entered. He saw no weapon, no threat. Only lines and shapes. The old man raised a hand and spoke, not in fear, but in irritation. He asked the soldier not to disturb his work. The soldier hesitated for a moment. Then, without warning, he struck. The man fell where he had drawn. His final work erased in an instant. He was Archimedes. And in that moment, the greatest mind of the ancient world was silenced by a man who did not understand what he was destroying. But how did a thinker, armed only with ideas, become so important that even conquerors were told to spare him? What had he seen, that others could not? The world remembered Archimedes as a genius who shouted, "Eureka," and ran through the streets. A curious story, almost playful. A man who loved puzzles more than power. But that version was incomplete. It missed the danger in his ideas. It ignored the war machines he built. And it softened a mind that could turn simple thought into devastating force. Behind the legend stood a man who changed mathematics, redefined physics, and turned knowledge itself into a weapon. This story would uncover three things. The truth behind the famous Eureka moment. The hidden role Archimedes played in war. And the deeper question that followed him to his death. Was he only a thinker, or something far more dangerous? To understand Archimedes, one had to understand his world. It was the 3rd century before Christ. The Mediterranean was a stage of rising powers. Greek city-states still shaped culture and knowledge, but Rome was growing, disciplined, relentless, and hungry for control. Syracuse, where Archimedes lived, stood between worlds. A Greek city on the island of Sicily, wealthy and strategic. Its harbors controlled trade routes. Its walls guarded influence. And its leaders balanced diplomacy with survival. Life was not peaceful. War was constant, sometimes distant, sometimes at the gates. Knowledge was valued, but power decided outcomes. Yet this was also an age of thought. Greek scholars had already begun to ask questions that still echoed today. What was the nature of matter? How did the heavens move? Could the world be explained through reason alone? Archimedes was born into this tension, between war and wisdom. His father was an astronomer. From him, Archimedes likely learned to look upward, to measure, to question. Later, he studied in Alexandria, the great center of learning. There, ideas moved freely. Mathematics was not just calculation, it was a way of understanding reality itself. But Archimedes was different. Where others saw numbers, he saw patterns behind the universe. Where others described shapes, he imagined infinite divisions. He approached truth not through observation alone, but through pure thought. And here was the surprising fact: many of his greatest discoveries were never meant for practical use. He believed theoretical knowledge, knowledge for its own sake, was the highest form of understanding. Yet the world around him did not share that belief. When he returned to Syracuse, he did not enter politics or command armies. He worked quietly, often alone. But his ideas would not remain abstract for long. Because in a city under threat, even the most distant theory could become a tool of survival. And then came the test. It began, as many stories claimed, with a crown. The king of Syracuse suspected a goldsmith of dishonesty. He had been given gold to create a crown, but the king feared it had been mixed with cheaper metal. He turned to Archimedes for an answer. The popular story said Archimedes solved the problem in a bath, shouting, "Eureka," as he discovered the principle of displacement, the idea that an object placed in water pushes aside a volume equal to itself. But the truth was less dramatic, and more profound. Archimedes did not simply notice water spilling. He understood why it mattered. He realized that volume and weight could reveal hidden composition. It was not a sudden accident, it was the result of deep reasoning. This was his first great test. And he passed it not with luck, but with insight. But what made him truly different? He did not stop at solving problems. He built systems. He created methods. He showed that physical reality could be described through mathematics. Then came the obstacle. War reached Syracuse. Did he struggle with this transformation? History did not record his inner thoughts. But the contrast was clear. A mind built for understanding the universe, now used to break ships and crush armies. For a time, it worked. Syracuse held. Roman forces were delayed, frustrated, humiliated. But no defense lasted forever. Eventually, through strategy and patience, Rome breached the city. Syracuse fell, not in a single moment, but through slow inevitability. And in that fall, Archimedes reached the peak of his life, and its cost. His greatest achievement was not a single invention. It was the idea that the physical world could be described with precision. He calculated areas and volumes that others could not imagine. He approached what later thinkers would call calculus, centuries before it had a name. He once wrote, with quiet confidence, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the earth." It was not a boast of strength. It was a statement of principle, the power of leverage, of understanding force. Yet what had it cost him? He lived outside ordinary life. He neglected wealth, status, even personal safety. Stories described him so absorbed in thought that he forgot to eat, forgot to notice the world around him. At his peak, he stood between two realities. In one, he was a philosopher, chasing eternal truths. In the other, he was an engineer of war, shaping the fate of cities. And then came the hinge. The fall of Syracuse. Roman generals had given orders. Archimedes was to be captured alive. His knowledge was too valuable to lose. But orders did not control chaos. The city burned. Soldiers moved through streets without guidance, without patience. And somewhere inside, Archimedes remained as he always had been. Focused. Still. Unaware of danger. The end came quietly. No grand speech. No final invention. Just a man, kneeling over lines in the dust. The soldier who killed him did not act out of strategy. He acted out of impulse. Perhaps fear. Perhaps ignorance. Archimedes' last request, to leave his work undisturbed, was not a plea for life. It was a statement of identity. Even at the edge of death, he remained what he had always been. A thinker. Was this inevitable? From the beginning, Archimedes had lived in a world that valued power over knowledge. His ideas elevated him, but also exposed him. He stood at the intersection of thought and war, where brilliance could not protect the body that carried it. The question asked at the start now had its answer. He was not only a thinker. He was a force, one that even empires struggled to understand. And when he died, something larger than a man was lost. What would the world look like without Archimedes? Without him, mathematics would have moved more slowly. The understanding of geometry, the measurement of circles, spheres, and curves, would have remained incomplete. His methods laid the foundation for future discoveries that shaped science itself. Engineers, long after his death, would rely on principles he first described. Levers, buoyancy, mechanical advantage, these were not inventions, but insights. He revealed them, and in doing so, changed how humanity interacted with the physical world. Yet history also misunderstood him. It reduced him to a story, a man in a bath, shouting in excitement. It softened the complexity of his life. It ignored the tension between his love of pure knowledge and the reality of its use in war. He was not simple. He was a contradiction. A man who believed in knowledge for its own sake, yet proved that knowledge could never remain untouched by the world around it. And still, his legacy endured. Not in statues or stories alone, but in every calculation, every machine, every moment where thought turned into power. That was rare. Few individuals bent the arc of civilization through ideas alone. Archimedes did. And he paid for it with a life that ended as quietly as it had begun. So what should he be remembered as? A pure thinker, untouched by the world? Or a man whose ideas became tools of war? Was Archimedes responsible for what his knowledge made possible, or was he simply the one who revealed truths that would have been found anyway? That question remained open. And it still waits for an answer.